Welcome to Let's Talk Learning Technology. Do you know the latest in learning technology? Matt and Walter do. From learning authoring tools and animation to virtual reality and everything in between, innovative learning groups Matt Kurtin and Walter Schirmacher geek out on all of it. Get their perspectives on the latest trends, tips and tricks, and recommendations so your learning tech keeps up with the times.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to LT Squared. I'm Matt Kurtin, Senior Director of Technology and Visual Design at Innovative Learning Group.
And I'm Walter Schirmacher, a programmer at ILG. With us today is Chandra Owen, an instructional designer lead at TechSmith. Thank you for joining us today, Chandra.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's great to have you here today. We know from decades of developing e-learning that it can be much more engaging and more instructionally sound if you put in great audio, great graphics, and great video. And we know that using media tools that go beyond those found in popular e-learning tools are a part of what allow us to achieve that success. I think that's where TechSmith comes in. So let's start with a basic overview of what TechSmith does. Can you give us kind of a high-level overview?
Sure. So TechSmith is a Midwestern tech company. We have a little over 300 employees, and we create a few different types of software, but a lot is geared around recording your screen. So we have a product called Snagit, which it's been around for quite a while, so many people probably have it on their computers, and that is for taking screen captures, mostly still images, but we do have a little bit of video functionality in that program. We also have Camtasia, which is our video editor, so great for those who are creating training, all sorts of different e-learning, so many different ways that people use that. So that's our video editor. And then we have a tool called Audiate, which is a text-based audio editor. So you can actually record your audio and then edit your words just like you would on a document, which is really neat. We have a few other products as well that we use that help kind of support that suite of creation using screen recordings or even recordings that you've created elsewhere and want to jazz up or add some extra to.
Excellent. I've used a lot of those tools, and I'm looking forward to talking about them more as we go ahead here.
Oh, yeah. I always enjoy working with these tools as well. So tell us just a little bit about how you got to TechSmith. I mean, did you go there right out of grad school?
I did not. So I actually started with a teaching degree, and teaching actually is a lot different than it is now, and it was hard to break into teaching, so I ended up in higher education thinking I just do it for a few years, and I worked in training, social media, a lot of different, it was within the financial aid office actually. There I was creating videos for students to understand the process. How do they apply for financial aid? I was also, it was very heavily like federal regulation based. So I was creating content and courses for my teammates in the office there, creating hybrid classes that were part online and part in person. And then the opportunity came up. I heard about TechSmith. I went to an event called Camtasia, where I learned all about Camtasia, met their great team there, and just fell in love with the company and their mission and their values, and ended up applying for an instructional design position there, and used those skills in teaching, training to now do instructional design. I've been there about 5 years now, and I did complete my master's in educational technology at Michigan State while I was working there too. So that helped prepare me as well.
I love that you have that shared interest across teaching and technology, because it's something that we have as well. I recall talking with you before about what first sparked your interest in technology, getting a computer at a young age before most people your age had one. And that's also how I fell in love with programming and then programming for learning. But I was wondering also about another thing you talked about how you got started with STEM to encourage girls to learn more about when you were volunteering with Girl Scouts Heart of Michigan.
Yeah, that was something that was important to me, to create fun activities that we could do that weren't just fun, but also we learned about science and technology, engineering. So, it was just challenges on using the tools that we had to build things and come up with solutions. But the girls really had a lot of fun with that.
I think that's great. Great for anyone to learn about technology, and I think great to get Girl Scouts interested in the field. Another question I've really been looking forward to asking you about is what it's like working hands-on developing tutorials and webinars for an external audience. We really like that your products are well-designed and easy to use, but on top of that, the fantastic tutorials. What products have you been supporting with creating tutorials or other training?
Yeah, so when I first started, I worked on our Snagit team, worked closely with our Snagit team creating tutorials, and then recently made a shift and have been working with Camtasia and Audiate to create those tutorials. What I love about it is I've always felt like I had a strength in hearing the developers and how they're creating things and then translating that into information that is easy for anyone who might not have a tech background to understand. And so I get to sit with developers during the day and hear what they're creating, give input, give customer, speak up for customers and say, I think they might understand this process a little better. And then the other part of my day is recording my screen. Once I get what we call a build, when a build's ready, that isn't quite ready out for the public, I get it a couple weeks early and I get to record tutorials so I can, when it does come out to the world, they can have that self-support. Maybe, not everybody's an experienced video editor or quite understands the process. So we get to create tutorials to teach them step by step on how to, do what they want to do.
So I think we have an overlap that quite often, or at least fairly often, part of the e-learning we're developing is software system training where we're teaching people how to use systems. The main difference is that we're teaching all kind of systems and your tutorials are teaching your own systems. But I think they're both focused on that thing of helping the person do the job better by doing a great job on the tutorial, obviously.
Absolutely.
Not that long ago, I actually got to use some of your tools, and the tutorials were very helpful because we were converting Flash into HTML5, and some of the Flash were just animations, and so I actually ended up using Snagit to record videos and do some quick editing of them because it didn't really require anything super robust or super low, and it needed something right in the middle, and that was perfect for it.
Yeah, I started with more, so my husband is a film major in college, and so he was using very robust video editors, and then so I started on those and found they just had a lot more options than what I needed. And so when I found Camtasia, when it was prior to working at TechSmith, I was so excited because it just made video editing, just gave me what I needed. I could hit the share button. I didn't have to worry about so many different export options. It looked good. It sounded good just by clicking share and downloading the MP4.
Yeah, I think sometimes simpler is better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We found that to be a good solution too. Even when we were doing some of our holiday cards and we needed a quick HTML wrapper just to put around it so we could get it loaded, and we actually did that in using Camtasia. So that was really cool. So I always like hearing about what people do on a day-to-day basis. Of all the things you get to do between recording videos and getting to see products early on and working with people, what is your favorite thing about what you get to do?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, creating is exciting to me. That's probably my favorite. I like to learn and see what's happening, but the most exciting is when I can take that and storyboard and animate and think of how, like examples, what examples would people want to use this feature for, and then how can I teach it? So I get to kind of combine that, like getting to show something fun that you can create on top of step-by-step, how would you do it, teaching that. And then in webinars too, I guess what my favorite probably, I don't always get a lot of customer interaction day to day, but what I do love is like doing a webinar and at the end getting, survey results or seeing the questions and answers or the chat coming through and, what resonates with them was helpful, or maybe they're just like, oh my gosh, I learned about this and it's going to help me in my job and I can't wait to try it. Like that's probably my favorite piece of it all.
Yeah, it sounds like you really think about like how will people be using this product and really try to apply that. That helps make really good learning when you can do that.
And it sounds like you get to split your role across a part of the instructional design of thinking what people need to learn and how to learn it, and then the media development tasks of working in the tools both too, which probably gives you a good bit of variety.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that combination.
Well, let's dive into some of these tools. I know you mentioned both Camtasia and Snagit both can do some video editing, but how do you choose one versus the other, depending on what you want to do?
Yeah, that's a really common question that we get because they both do have, where is that line between Snagit video and then Camtasia video? But personally, what I like to use Snagit for is for when I need to do a quick share out. Maybe we're wondering, how are the views doing on this particular tutorial? Or are we getting a lot of people to this particular website, and what might be the issues? So if I'm sharing out maybe some metrics on that, Snagit's a great place to start because I can just hit record. I can choose picture in picture if I want to have my face as a part of it or not. And then I can, do some quick little cuts like in edits, and then I can share that. I don't need a lot of editing in that case. I don't need a lot of animations. I don't really need an intro or anything fancy. I can draw on my screen and do it, but it's great for quick communication or just quick little snippet videos. If you want to add music tracks, intros, animations, motion graphics, all sorts of those advanced video elements, then you are going to want to use Camtasia because it offers so many tools. I'm always excited to see what new visual effects our team is coming up with to, just make video even easier.
So if I heard you right, it seems like Snagit has the functionality to do what you do, and Camtasia goes on beyond that to add a whole lot of production value to make it snazzier or fancier beyond the basics.
Absolutely. Yeah. We get a lot of can I do, people start with Snagit and then they want to do more advanced things. And, we'll have to say, well, you might want to check out Camtasia if you want to take it to that next level.
One of the things also that relates to that, I just was at a conference and we were talking about PDFs. And one of the key points that came out of that is you should always save your source files because you don't want to go back into the produced PDF and go back and try to edit that. You always want to go back to your source. And Snagit's really good if you're just making something, I find, but then don't need to go back and make edits later on because it's in your library, versus Camtasia will actually give you a source file that you can save and then reopen and then make some more edits in the future.
I just wanted to clarify on Snagit, if you're doing images, you can save them as a SnagX file and go back and make changes to them. Just a heads up. So give you an extra tip, but when it comes to video, there's not as much that you can go back and do.
That's a good tip, actually, because I find I just make edits in the editor, and then I'll forget to make those. So that's very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I use Snagit quite a lot as a part of my quality assurance testing process to get a quick picture and mark up what the issue is, because it's a lot easier to mark it up that way than to write out sentences explaining when it's, I guess, what is it? A picture is worth 1,000 words. It just saves time to use Snagit to get a picture and put it in. I wanted to ask next about Audiate. So you mentioned that that's using text to edit the audio, but tell us a little bit more about how Audiate works and how it differs from other audio editing tools.
Yeah, so we just recently, I'm not sure the exact date, but it hasn't been out too long, a couple of years, I think, created this tool. We heard a lot of, and did a lot of research on what is the most time-consuming thing about creating video or other types of media. And one of them was editing the audio. So we did some research and came up with this tool, Audiate, where, there's different ways you can use it. You can bring in audio you've recorded elsewhere, or you can record it right in Audiate. And then as you're recording it, it's really interesting how you'll see the text popping up right on your screen as you're talking. So it's transcribing what you're saying right away. And then once that's there, I know for myself, I often will repeat a line a couple times for when I'm creating that polished tutorial and editing. If I can just see, I've got 3 lines, typically that last line that I'm saying is the one that I'm like, yep, nailed it. So I can delete, just, go through and delete based on looking at the text to save me time editing audio and give you guys a little sneak peek. Soon we're just going to be releasing some text to speech functionality too. So if you're somebody who hates the sound of your own voice, you'll be able to either bring in, you'll be able to record your voice, or you can even type and bring in a whole script and pick an AI voice to apply to that. One thing I love about that is I hate when I create a video and I miss one word or have, said one button label the wrong way. So if I use a different voice, I can go in and make those changes. So we've got a lot, and there's some more stuff coming, but I can't tell all of the secrets. But we are continuously trying to make this tool better and better for those who edit audio.
Well, it's clear that you guys are looking at what's going on with AI and incorporating it with the text-to-speech and speech-to-text. That's cool stuff. What about Screencast? So that's one that I haven't used as much as all the other tools you've mentioned. I've used quite a bit, but can you tell me a little bit about Screencast?
I sure can. So a lot of people don't know about Screencast and that it exists. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite things about it is that situation where you created a video, but you want to send it to somebody, and maybe it's in a Zoom chat where you can't put a full video file, or it's an email that you're trying to send the link to the video in. So what you can do is it's available both in Snagit and in Camtasia. You can export to Screencast, and it is a website that you can upload images or videos to. And you can send somebody, it will create a link for you to send that video or image. And then the other thing is it has this commenting functionality. Say I sent that metrics video out and I want to have a conversation with my team about it asynchronously. I can send that link out and we can have this conversation in the comments area. So a discussion feature there to talk about it. And did you say also an analytics feature? Is it to see how many people watched it or something else?
No, there's not. I think there is, like, you could see views, but it's less analytics, but more just an easier way to share what you create.
Okay.
There is like a free level. So you can have so much media for free, but if you use it a lot and you get to a certain storage amount, then there is a subscription for it.
Excellent.
That's cool. So I know you get to see a lot of tools as they're up and coming and new features that get added. What are some of your favorite new features that you can talk about?
Yeah, we do have. Yeah, I was going to say, keep an eye out for Camtasia and Audiate. We've got some really fun, interesting, great tools coming. But some of my most recent favorites are audio visualizers. So that is great. And what it does, we've had a lot of feedback. Kelly Rush is one of our teammates who works on Camtasia, and he would make these videos and put them on YouTube where when you're speaking, you're seeing, a beautiful visual of his audio waves as he talked. And he got a lot of how did you make that? And he comes with a background of knowing a lot of After Effects and some more advanced tools. And so he worked with our team to create these audio visualizers. You can just drag and drop over an audio track in Camtasia, and it works. That's all you have to do. And it's got this beautiful, you can do it in waves or a circle. He likes to there's a circle one, and so you could put someone's face in the circle. And what I like that for is maybe you don't like recording yourself, but you have a picture. You're like, hey, that picture's not so bad. You can select that picture, put your face in the center, and still kind of get that personal touch because you see the movement in what they're saying. Or localization is another way I really like to use it. If we have that challenge of recording ourselves in a tutorial, but then wanting to translate that into all of our different languages. And that can be a challenge because they have to be on camera and matching up syncing of their, mouths and all of that. So instead you could just still have that image and have it translated in a lot of different languages and use that audio visualizers.
I like that feature for the case where maybe all we have is an audio and we want to have some visual interest, but no way to get a video because what we received is only audio, that it gives you something nice to look at while you're listening to the audio.
Yeah, that does sound nice. That would be better than just the same picture for 4 or 5 minutes.
Yes, and I have that with anybody creating e-learning and tutorials, and you always have that stretch where you're kind of giving the why maybe instead of the showing how just yet, and it goes on for a bit. Yeah, you don't know what to show in that period of time, so it is definitely great for that.
Yeah. And I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about the JKL feature.
Yes, JKL. So that is a very popular for those who do a lot of video editing to go backwards quickly as you're kind of working, especially great when you have a long recording that you're trying to find a spot the particular spot for. So J, takes you backwards, K kind of pauses, and L takes you forward. So those shortcut keys we recently added to Camtasia after many requests from our customers. Please add those keys into the product.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a minor thing, but I guarantee you it's faster than moving the mouse around to click different buttons. By the time you get the mouse over to the pause or the rewind, you've lost it. So I do think that's a great feature.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, keyboard shortcuts are great. You learn them, and then you can really become a power user with those.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like they used to be like software updates would come out like yearly, quarterly, and but now things have moved to be even like faster. So we're having a lot of rapid releases of new features. So how does that impact your role in creating materials that explain all these new features as they keep rolling out and rolling out?
Yeah, it's something that I'm very much in the learning process of right now. We did move from, doing a major release where we maybe 6 months ahead of time knew what was coming out. We had this nice video plan and all the content plan and internal training and had plenty of time to do all of the things. And now we are moving to get value out to customers faster and doing that more frequently. And as a content creator, anyone knows that is a lot of work and can be a little scary when you see, oh man, we're moving so fast. Now I know, 20 of my tutorials have some incorrect user interface that I need to update. So I wouldn't say I've come up with the perfect solution just yet, but I am learning through the process and absolutely would love to connect with anyone who maybe works in like a SaaS environment where they're releasing quickly to see how they're doing it. But what I try to do is prioritize. Since I can't do all of the things immediately upon release day, I try to think first, what are the new features that customers might need support with, and how can I help them and create content? Second is, can I put a placeholder maybe on a tutorial page to say this was created with an earlier version and we're working on an update as a possible solution to buy a little more time to get that update out there. So it's working a lot with our teams, maybe our sales department, our customer facing teams, to say, what resources do you need on release date to support your customers and give them a great experience? And what can we hold off on for a little bit afterwards and get caught up once that comes out?
That aligns exactly with what most often happens when we're doing system training for release of a new system, because most often they're working on the system itself, developing and adjusting and editing and changing the features while we're developing the training, because the training needs to be done as soon as it's ready to launch. That we're working on the training, we build some and they change how the system works, and we got to go back and revise. So that flexibility to make changes fast and to make good choices for when to put in a placeholder and go back and do it later all aligns with what system training is really like in the real world, for at least for the majority of our large clients.
Yeah, and I think you've got the right idea about prioritizing, because that's what it really comes down to. Like, what do people need now and what can they live with that's good enough in order to be able to learn what they need, even if it isn't, identical.
Yeah. And I like to think about like evergreen too. What is it something that I can do that might last a little longer or be a little easier to update? Like what examples am I showing? Those type of things to see if I can help save a little bit of time in the future. That's
a great point. I think one of the things that sets TechSmith apart is both quantity and quality of your tutorials. And partly it's probably a byproduct of the fact that your tools are made for making tutorials. But I'm wondering, as you're going about to create these tutorials, the subject matter experts that you work with, do you end up talking directly to the developers who program them very often or sometimes?
I'm really connected with our developers. I go to their stand-ups. I usually don't go to every stand-up every morning, but at least once a week I try to go to like our Mac-based Camtasia stand-up and then our Windows side. And in our Audiate team, I do watch system demos that they do. When I do get down to creating a tutorial, sometimes we have a UX team, user experience team. And they're a great resource for understanding what the ideal workflow is that we want people to take in. I do learn from developers how things work, but I might learn about all of the details and, all of the settings and think, not every user needs to know about all of those. What's the ideal workflow we want somebody to go through? And so, I meet with UX and we'll document step by step what let's say for Camtasia, it's if somebody's creating their first video, we know we have so many tools in Camtasia, but if someone's creating their first video, what is it that they really want to do, and what should we show them in the tutorial?
I know as I'm using the tutorials, sometimes I'm going through and just looking at a bunch of them to get a general idea of what the new features are, so I'll be able to make use of them when the time is right. And other times I'm coming back and I'm saying, I'm trying to do this type of an animation, haven't done that in a while, I'm going to use it for performance support. What's your thinking process for how you try to make them work for training versus performance support? Do you end up doing two separate things, or you try to make one that works with both?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's something that we're continuously, I think, developing and working on. We know that we have a mix of audience that comes to our tutorial page. Some are people who I'm brand new to this and I want to learn all the things, or just enough to make my great first video. Others are there because they want help with just a particular thing. I just want to know why the playhead is doing this, or how does it work. So we do try to keep our videos around 3 to 5 minutes at the most. So that hopefully supports both like the chunked learning, so I can keep learning along the way and watch a bunch of videos if I want to keep learning, or it helps support that person who's there for just tell me the answer. I don't need to, go through too much. And I think that we find a pretty good blend, but we are experimenting with things like learning paths and curated learning experiences for the different reasons people come to our pages and want to learn.
My experience has been that it's working well for both. For instance, when a new version of Camtasia comes out and I see that email come in, the first thing I'd go do is go look at all of the tutorials to get familiar. I'm the type of person that wants to know what's possible to do, so that when I need to do something, I go, I remember you could do that. But then I also come back and say, I'm trying to accomplish it now, and it's working well for me in both cases.
That's great to hear. Yeah, we were, go back and forth on, do people just want to know click, 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 this is what I do, or do they want click, 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 but also some sort of outcome? Like, let's use Blur Region to create our frosted frame title screen or something like that. So we give them an example of something they can create with Blur Region, but also teach them how to use it in the process.
One of the things you mentioned was that you get to talk to the developers a lot and attend their stand-ups and stuff. Do you ever get a chance to see, like, hey, I influenced that, or because of your feedback, you might see something that, got changed, or maybe a feature that got kind of developed based on your feedback?
Yeah, I have. The thing I love about the company is there is a value that we treat everybody as equals. And I've never felt like being a part of it, even dev teams where maybe I don't know all of the programming in depth. My ideas are always listened to and, welcome. Of course, not everything that I say, is like, yep, let's build that. Chandra said we should make that. But there have been things for sure that I say, I think somebody might get confused with the way this process is going, or could we do it in this way instead? And they do definitely listen and make changes. So it is exciting when you see, like, I was a part of a group, we have something coming out pretty soon, and I was a part of a group about a year ago that brainstormed this idea, and to see it coming to fruition is really exciting.
You hit on another good point about human performance, which is if you can make the system itself easier to use, then the job aid doesn't have to be as complicated. You may be able to get rid of the job aid if it becomes easy enough in the system. So that's good too.
I think that getting that outside input when you're all like heads down working on something is really valuable. I mean, I have a non-programming related example of that in my life where I was working on this animation with this bear, and this bear was scratching his back against a tree in the animation. And my daughter, who was really young at the time, looked at me and said, that's not how bears scratch their back. And I said, how do they scratch their back? And she showed me. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing it. I had it all wrong. So I fixed it, and then it looked a lot better. She didn't know how to make the animation, but she certainly knew how a bear should scratch his back.
I love it.
She was like 6. But, you get those inputs from, it doesn't have to just be from your team. You get them from all over, and it's always good when you can take that input and that feedback.
Yeah, and for myself, too, I want that, too, because I talk about, that curse of knowledge sometimes that we have when we create tutorials, and maybe there's a step or a few steps that we kind of have that assumption that people know where to go or how to do it. And so to have somebody watch your video before it goes live, TechSmith creates a tool called Video Review where you can send out a video and leave comments along the way on the timeline and say, hey, I would recommend this change or that. That's a big part of our process, is that we have somebody, at least one person, if not more, review our content. And hopefully, with those goggles on of like, would I understand this if I was just fresh and didn't work with Camtasia all day long?
It sounds like you really have a lot of like the whole training process integrated into your regular development process with getting feedback and getting other people involved and everything, which is so important, not just to be like in a silo.
Yes.
So that's great. So thank you for sharing so much with us today. Is there anything else you want to share with us or give us a preview on?
In October, November time period, keep your eyes out. We've got really some great developments coming out to the public, and they are geared towards making it even easier to create video. If you are somebody who maybe is afraid to press that record button or has tried it in the past and didn't love it, but there's some really neat tools I think that people will enjoy that are coming soon. So I wish I could tell you more, but it's not too far off in the future. It will be in your, be available.
We'll be on the lookout. Thank you for sharing what you could share today. I think you shared a lot of tips and a lot of insights. I really liked particularly that Snag X tip. We'll have to take that one to the bank, Walter.
Yeah, we get the question a lot, and hopefully I understood the process you were working with. But yeah, if you take a screenshot and you want to, and you add some things to it and then you send it out, but later on you want to go back to it, SnagX lets you go back and make those changes where if you save it as a PNG or other flattened files is what, we refer to them as, then you can't make those changes. Now, I will caution you with SnagX, if you send it to somebody else and it's got blurred out information, they can move those blurs around. So it can be good and bad. So keep an eye out for that.
That's a good tip, too. Well, I guess if I had to recap some of the main points for today, I would say that knowing that you could use these types of audio and video editing tools gives you an opportunity to make better e-learning than you could do without them. And the support that you provide for your tools through your tutorials, which can be used both for performance support and training, makes them great tools to use. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And just, I don't know if I shared this little workflow as one of my favorites to kind of leave you with, but one of the things I love to do, especially if you're someone working where you have sensitive information, is to take screenshots in Snagit and then bring them into Camtasia. And I guess one more step before you bring it to Camtasia in Snagit, you can use selection tools and select that personal information, delete it right out of there. Then when you're in Camtasia, you don't have to worry about like covering it, as you animate it and move it around. So just one more tip, one of my favorite ways to edit is somebody who's had to try to edit things where I didn't have test people in the system and had real information to try to move around and keep protected.
Yeah, that's great to know. So we posted a link to the TechSmith website, and if you want to learn more about the tools we discussed today, you can check that out. If you have any learning technology topics you'd like us to talk about, Matt and I are on LinkedIn. You can also send us an email at marketing@innovativelg.com, and thank you for listening.